Now, let's take you further afield to India, which has recorded the lowest number of COVID-19 infections for the first time in 2 months. The government there has extended restrictions in some parts of the country until the 15th of June. India has had the second most infections in the world behind the United States. To get the latest now, let's speak to our India correspondent, Rebecca Bandun. Rebecca, good day. Welcome to the Midday View here on eNCA. Firstly, numbers-wise, it looks like there's a decline, and I'm sure everybody in India is relieved to see that decline happening.
Absolutely. If we look at the numbers that have come out today, there's just over 100,000 cases, and that compares to about 400,000 cases on a daily basis just about a month ago. So this really is a very, very, obvious kind of downward decline in terms of the numbers, although experts have long been saying that they do believe numbers are higher than the official figures that we're seeing reported, both in terms of COVID-19 infections and deaths as well. But clearly there is this downward trend, although those numbers are still very high. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just addressed the nation, and he said that India is still fighting the second wave of infections, so nobody can get too comfortable for now. Several states have extended their restrictions, but states are also easing some of the restrictions as well amid this downward trend in the numbers of infections. And for example, Delhi today has allowed shops to reopen on alternate days. Half will open one day, half the next day, and so on. It's also allowed shopping malls as well. Private offices can open with 50% of their staff. The same in Mumbai as well. It's also eased quite a few of the lockdown restrictions from today. Restaurants are now allowed to open until 4 p.m. For dine-in customers. Trains are now allowed to operate for essential workers. Again, private offices are once again functioning with 50% of the staff allowed up until 4 p.m. So there's been quite a bit of easing of these restrictions as the numbers have come down. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi just warned a short while ago that the second wave isn't over yet, so people still have to obviously be following COVID-19 precautions and so on. And yes, doctors are worried that there could easily be another spike in cases, and they are warning of a possible third wave. So there's still risks on the horizon as well. Yeah,
here in South Africa, a number of our parts of the country are already in the third wave, as you might be aware, Rebecca. So it's a possibility. People need to take care. But on the one hand, the vaccination rollout in India could be seen as a savior of sorts if it happens properly. What's the latest regarding that?
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, because Mr. Modi, who's just addressed the nation, India's Prime Minister, he was very much focused on the vaccination drive, because there has been widespread criticism of the vaccination programme, which started in January but has been incredibly slow amid shortages of doses most recently, which has been the main challenge. And that means that only less than 4% of the population have actually been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, and that's despite India being one of the world's, or the world's, largest manufacturer of vaccines. And it's producing 2 jabs, one which is Covishield, the AstraZeneca jab that's being made locally, and also a homegrown vaccine, which is being made by Bharat Biotech. So despite all of that, there have been these shortages of vaccines. But now Mr. Modi today in his address was saying that from the 21st of June, vaccines will be available to everybody over the age of 18 for free. The central government is now going to really take over full control of the vaccination drive. It had actually given up some of the control to individual states, and it says that doesn't seem to have worked, essentially. It also says there are several vaccines under development in India, including 3 that are at very advanced stages of their trials. So that's encouraging as well, that there could be more vaccines available. And India is also ramping up production of those vaccines that it's already producing, the AstraZeneca jab being made locally by the Serum Institute of India, and that Bharat Biotech vaccine as well. So, the government's sort of saying that this is going to pick up pace, but so far it has been very slow, really, and it's obviously India's main way of really battling the virus and trying to prevent or ease a possible third wave, which now everybody's really worried about, which doctors are saying could really affect children in particular.
Yeah, that's going to be very worrying if it's going to be affecting the youth, the younger population. Very briefly, Rebecca, as we conclude our crossing now, one of the biggest criticism against the government of Narendra Modi was how quickly earlier they had allowed the economy and normal activity, including sporting and cultural and religious activity, to resume. Now, in the midst of the second wave, that's beginning to ease a little bit. Delhi and Mumbai, where you are, and other big cities are also beginning, as you said, to relax a little bit, okay? Are they trying to manage this better compared to earlier? That the way people were criticizing that must have contributed a lot to the second wave.
Yes, absolutely. That was a major criticism that, the government did allow a lot of these election rallies to go ahead, even ones that were addressed by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself just before the onset of the second wave, or even as it had just started. And, of course, those religious gatherings as well, including the Kumbh Mela ahead. We are seeing this easing of restrictions, but there is a lot more caution now. If we look at what's happening in Delhi, for example, cautiously reopening. Shops will only be allowed to open on alternate days. In Mumbai as well, and the wider state of Maharashtra, where Mumbai is located, which actually has had the highest number of infections overall, they're also being very cautious. They have these different categories. There are 5 different categories, and each district is allowed to open depending on the positivity rates of COVID-19 and also how many oxygen beds are actually available in that district. So from week to week, they can easily change those restrictions again. They can tighten or they can ease depending on how well the area is doing in terms of its managing its numbers of COVID-19 infections. So they seem to have now devised ways to actually try to manage the situation and try to allow the economy to reopen a bit, because it is that issue of trying to balance, lives versus livelihoods.
Yeah, I guess everybody's facing that challenge. Thank you very much, Rebecca Bandun, for the latest there. And just after she listened to the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, addressing the nation just a short while ago about how they need to avoid the third wave. Concerns growing in India that their third coronavirus wave as well will affect children. Currently, the economy opening up slowly in different parts, and the numbers are of daily infections are beginning to decline, and they are ramping up the production of vaccines as well.